Is the statement on domestic politics or foreign politics?
Is there a difference these days? No. I don't know. I should not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, fair.
That's what makes you a good reporter.
Yes.
It's the first and last time you'll say that, so I appreciate it. I expected you to say decent, so good is an upgrade.
Well, how about adequate?
Yeah. Satisfactory.
That's all we can hope.
We're getting off the elevator.
What's that? Yes.
All right. So now that Donald Trump has taken office, he has again reiterated the threat of tariffs against Canada. And what that means for workers right now, you've got people across this country wondering, is it their job on the line? There are hundreds and thousands of Canadian workers that could be impacted by a trade war. It also means at a time when the cost of living is already so high, the cost could go up even further. We do not want this trade war. We are great neighbors with the US. These are our friends. And in Canada, we take care of our neighbors. We look out for one another. But do not take our kindness for weakness. We are ready to fight back. And I've said this before and I say it again. Donald Trump is a bully who understands one thing, that is strength. So we have to show strength and be ready to fight back. But we know one thing in trade wars, while we want to do everything possible to avoid it, to stop it before it happens, and I've talked about some of the things we need to do, we know in trade wars, it's workers that suffer, and that cannot happen. So my commitment is a new Democratic government would ensure that every cent, every dollar of the trade, of the tariffs that we put in reprisal, that revenue is used to support workers, to support those workers that are impacted. But let's talk about the approach that we need to take against this. We're seeing a mixed response for some premiers and conservative premiers and some leaders. We've heard from Daniel Smith, who is taking tools off the table, which is the wrong approach. We need to have every tool on the table to fight back against Donald Trump. And now we're hearing from François Blanchet, who's also saying, let's not use hydroelectricity in Quebec. That's not the right approach. We need to use every tool possible to fight back, to stop these tariffs before they happen. I've suggested, let's stop the flow of critical minerals. We know this is going to hit Donald Trump's billionaire buddy Elon Musk directly where it counts, because he relies on those critical minerals for the batteries, for his cars, for the Tesla cars. So let's continue with that. That's a direct attack to stop the tariffs before they happen. But it's interesting to note that Elon Musk has endorsed Pierre Poilievre, and Pierre Poilievre has accepted that endorsement. He's accepted the endorsement from a guy who's a part of an administration that has threatened our country, has threatened Canadian jobs, that has threatened to increase the cost of living at a time when people are struggling to get by. It shows you who Pierre Poilievre really is and who's on whose side he is. Elon is endorsing him because he knows that Pierre Poilievre is going to make billionaires even richer. And when Pierre Poilievre makes billionaires richer, the only way that happens is by cutting from the middle class, hurting the working class, hurting them. That's what he's going to do. I've said it before and I say it again. Donald Trump only understands strength. We need to show strength. I'm ready to fight back. Donc, ce qui s'est passé, c'est le fait que maintenant, Donald Trump est le président et il a encore répété ses menaces contre le Canada. Et ces menaces, c'est vraiment une grande inquiétude pour les travailleurs qui ont peur qu'ils vont perdre leurs emplois. Ça va aussi dire que peut-être ça va augmenter le coût de la vie pendant un temps qu'on fait face à une grande crise d'abordabilité. Donc, pour les Canadiens, nos valeurs, c'est de prendre soin les uns des autres. Mais on est prêt de se battre pour défendre notre pays. Et comme j'ai dit dans le passé, Donald Trump est une intimidateur. Et la seule chose qu'il comprend, c'est la force. Donc, on doit montrer la force. On ne veut pas avoir ce sorte de guerre, mais on sait que dans ce sorte de guerre, ça va impacter, ça va heurter les travailleurs. Donc, mon engagement, c'est on va utiliser chaque sou des tarifs de représailles pour protéger les travailleurs impactés par ces tarifs. Et je veux aussi noter que je suis inquiet d'entendre les propos des premiers ministres et des chefs des partis qui parlent d'enlever les outils qu'on peut utiliser contre Donald Trump. Donc, on a entendu Daniel Smith dire qu'on ne peut pas utiliser les outils d'énergie. Et maintenant, je suis déçu d'entendre que Yves-François Blanchet a dit la même chose, qu'on ne peut pas utiliser l'énergie. Pourquoi on va enlever un outil pour défendre les travailleurs, pour défendre notre pays? Donc, je ne suis pas d'accord avec cette approche. Et c'est aussi intéressant, j'ai suggéré qu'on doit commencer en arrêtant la vente des minéraux critiques, des minéraux essentiels. C'est quelque chose qui va heurter l'ami milliardaire Elon Musk de Donald Trump. Donc ça, c'est un outil qu'on peut utiliser et on doit commencer là. C'est intéressant que Elon Musk a appuyé Pierre Poilievre et Pierre Poilievre a accepté cet appui parce que Elon Musk sait que Pierre Poilievre va faire tout ce qu'il veut, que Pierre Poilievre va faire tout ce que Elon Musk veut parce que Pierre Poilievre est là pour aider les milliardaires, par la classe moyenne, par la classe ouvrière. Il a montré ça en acceptant cet appui. L'appui de quelqu'un qui est parti d'une administration qui menace notre pays, qui menace les travailleurs, qui menace à augmenter les coûts de la vie. Je suis aussi, donc, en fermant, je veux dire que, pour arrêter, je veux dire que, encore, la seule chose que des intimidateurs comprennent, c'est la force, et je suis prêt de me battre pour défendre les travailleurs. With that, I'm ready for any questions.
Monsieur Singh,
Pierre Poilievre says the next.
Go ahead.
Okay. Pierre Poilievre says the next election is about asking the tax. What is the ballot question for the NDP in the next election, and has that changed since the election of Donald Trump?
I think Pierre Poilievre has shown that he's out of touch with where people are at. Things are changing. And with the election of Donald Trump, it certainly means people are worried about what Donald Trump means to Canada. With the threat of tariffs, workers are worried about losing their jobs. They're also worried that the cost of living is going to go up. So there's a lot of worries that are coming out. I think fundamentally, Canadians want to know who's going to fight for me, who's going to stand up for me, not the billionaires, not the CEOs, who's going to fight for me in this time. And I want Canadians to know. I know you feel let down by the Liberals. Pierre Poilievre is in it for the billionaires. He's going to cut from the middle class. He's going to cut from the working class. It's going to hurt you. It's going to cost you, and give to his billionaire buddies. That's what he's going to do. And New Democrats are committed to fighting for you, lowering the cost of your bills, building homes you can afford, and getting you a family doctor.
Should
the
Canada
carbon tax.
I'll
amend
give the mic one, and then I'll give you a follow.
Should Canada amend the Safe Third Country Agreement for trans Americans who come to our borders seeking refuge?
On that note, I think it's really sad for the folks in the States right now that heard the president basically say that they don't exist or that their reality or their identity is no longer recognized. It's really scary for a lot of folks. And I just want to acknowledge how scary that must be for people who heard that, who now feel really alone, who feel really afraid. I think what Canada's always done is shown as a country that we are there for people when they're in their times of need. It's something that's been a point of pride of Canada. So looking at the third country, that agreement and how we can amend it, it's been something that we've been considering for a while. We've raised concerns about the agreement for a while, and so it's something we'll look at.
Sur Monsieur
I was going to give you that follow-up.
Blanchet.
No, we're going to do French question
Oui,
first.
merci. Sur Monsieur Blanchet, ce qu'il a dit, c'est que si le Canada menace de cesser des exportations énergétiques vers les États-Unis, ce serait de jouer avec le feu parce que les États-Unis pourraient se tourner vers d'autres sources d'approvisionnement. Donc, cet argumentaire-là que lui fait, si je comprends bien, c'est selon vous, à jeter à la poubelle, ça fait pas de sens?
Yeah, il y a de sens de ce que M. Blanchet a dit parce que il y a une guerre potentielle. Et dans une sorte de guerre comme ça, je ne veux pas qu'on ait une guerre des tarifs, mais la réalité, c'est que Donald Trump a menacé les tarifs. Donc, on doit être prêt à répondre. On ne peut pas enlever aucun outil pour répondre à ces tarifs. On doit être prêt à répondre avec la force pour arrêter les impacts parce que ça va heurter les travailleurs ici au Canada.
Du côté du NPD, est-ce que la dernière fois qu'on vous a demandé si vous aviez des contacts avec l'entourage de M. Trump, vous avez dit, comme vous l'avez dit tout à l'heure, que c'est un intimidateur. Vous avez dit que vous ne parlez pas à des intimidateurs. Est-ce que le Canada peut se permettre d'ignorer la garde rapprochée de M. Trump ou M. Trump lui-même pendant 4 ans?
Non, je pense que la réponse, si quelqu'un menace un pays, et donc si c'est une discussion, on doit discuter. Mais à ce moment, Donald Trump a menacé le Canada avec les tarifs. Donc la seule chose qu'il va comprendre, c'est la force. On a vu des politiciens qui ont essayé de parler avec Donald Trump, ça n'a pas fonctionné. Il comprend la force, donc on doit montrer qu'on est prêt de se battre pour défendre notre pays.
We've seen other Liberal candidates in this race part ways with the carbon tax or say that they're no longer, in full support of it. How does the NDP feel about the consumer carbon tax? Are you ready to part ways as well?
Well, we will announce our full plan very soon. Of course, you'd imagine we'll announce that when the campaign is called. But we've said some of the values that we want in our plan to take on the climate crisis, which is serious. We said, one, that the plan should actually work, should actually reduce emissions. We want to make the big polluters pay, and we don't want to see the burden fall on working people. These are some of the values that we will have reflected when we announce our plan, but you'd understand, of course, we're not going to announce our plan today, but when we announce our plan, it'll have those elements.
Yesterday,
En français, s'il vous plaît, vous dites qu'il faut agir tout de suite, que M. Trump va réagir à la force. Est-ce qu'il n'y a pas un risque de dire, ben nous, on veut couper tout de suite, on voudrait couper l'accès aux minéraux critiques, tout de suite, ne pas attendre? C'est pas un peu jeter de l'huile sur le feu, ça, d'y aller tout de suite sans attendre de voir quelles seront les prochaines étapes?
On doit être prêt de faire ça. J'ai dit que ça doit être notre premier pas. Donc, on doit attendre s'il impose des tarifs actuellement. Mais je pense que c'est important de dire comme pays, si vous imposez des tarifs contre nous, on va commencer tout de suite avec on va arrêter la vente des minéraux essentiels. Ça, c'est une étape forte. C'est quelque chose qui montre directement qu'on est prêt de se battre pour défendre notre pays. Et ça va heurter un ami proche de Donald Trump, Elon Musk. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose d'important.
on the consumer carbon tax, you had said that you're thinking about it. But even yesterday, Stephen Guilbeault said he's supporting Mark Carney, who is walking away from the consumer carbon tax. And Stephen Guilbeault is also saying that, that is not what is doing the bulk of the work on it. And he says that, people have changed and it's unfortunate. But does that mean that you're looking at it and when you make your platform, that you may not have a consumer carbon tax in there?
Well, we're going to release our plan and we'll let you know exactly when we do, exactly what our plan is. I can just tell you the elements of the plan that you can expect to see with a new Democrat plan. We have seen the Liberals' approach and the Conservative approach, and we didn't like either. It was clear to us that working folks did not feel that they were supported enough in the fight against the climate crisis. And we called that as a concern with the Liberal plan. And frankly, billionaire or big polluters, who are often billionaires, big polluters got away with polluting. And it wasn't really a strong plan to take on the biggest polluters. The Conservative plan, let's be very clear, is to let big polluters pollute as much as they want, dump as much as they want, poison the water, poison the air, no limit. That's their plan. I think both of them are wrong. I think we need a plan that takes on the big polluters. I think we need a plan that protects workers, supports them, gives them the help they need, doesn't make them bear the brunt of it, and a plan that actually works in reducing emissions.
A week ago, you said you criticized the Prime Minister's decision to prorogue Parliament amid the Trump threats. Is there not a value in kind of waiting until Parliament is back sitting and using that time in Parliament to be able to scrutinize government and handle that with unity, like you said? Why do you need to go to an election immediately at the first opportunity?
I think it's been really clear that the Liberals have let down people. People tell me they've been let down by them. They chose to prorogue government. They could have been sitting. We could have been passing laws that would protect workers, that would get us ready for this trade war. They chose not to. So people who tell me they feel let down by the Liberals, I understand that. And now we've got a choice in this next election. It's going to be between Conservatives want to cut and it's going to cost you or New Democrats who want to make life more affordable. So if you reject conservative cuts in Pierre Poilievre, I invite you to stand with me. Stand with me this time, and we can fight together and we can win.
Sur Amazon, s'il vous plaît, sur Amazon. On est deux journalistes francophones, on veut des questions en français, s'il vous
Oui,
plaît.
sur Amazon, oui.
1800 travailleurs au Québec qui apprennent qu'on ferme là, Amazon dans plusieurs régions. Comment vous voyez ça? Et est-ce qu'on doit craindre que ça se passe ailleurs également au pays?
C'est tellement inquiétant. Et c'est aussi, je pense, c'était la vraie raison pour laquelle Amazon a arrêté les opérations au Québec. C'est pour arrêter les travailleurs qui essaient de syndicaliser. Donc, ça, c'est horrible. C'est honnêtement horrible qu'on va voir un arrêt d'une opération d'une entreprise dans toute une région, toute la nation du Québec, seulement pour arrêter la syndicalisation des travailleurs. Ça va heurter les travailleurs, ça va heurter les gens. Donc, c'est exactement pourquoi je dis qu'on a besoin d'un gouvernement qui est là pour les travailleurs. C'est pourquoi je dis que les gens ont besoin de néo-démocrates qui sont là pour défendre les travailleurs. C'est vraiment dommage ce qui se passe et on va être là pour les travailleurs. On va mettre la pression comme on peut parce que ce qui se passe, c'est horrible. I'll just do that in English. Yeah. And then I'll wrap up on that because I got to go.
Oui, mais sur la fonction publique aussi, est-ce que me propose M. Poilievre en français aussi, s'il vous plaît?
That's a good question too. Damn it. Okay, I'll do those both. I'll do those both and then I'll have to wrap it. Yes. I'll do that and then I got to wrap it. Okay. On Amazon, what's happening in Quebec is very clearly Amazon trying to union bust. These are workers that were trying to unionize, and Amazon is shutting down operations in the complete region, in all of Quebec, just to stop these workers from demanding fairness. And that's why I say again and again, we need a government in this country that is there for workers, for working people. Pierre Poilievre is going to bring in American anti-union, anti-worker laws. It's going to be so bad for workers. We've got to fight back, and this is already an example of what billionaires want to do. They don't want workers to demand fairness. They don't want them to be able to stand up and get better wages and better work conditions. And so what's happening right now in Quebec is horrible. My heart goes out to those workers. This is wrong, what's happening to them. But I really am inspired by the fact that they were trying to fight for their rights. I'm really disappointed, and frankly, it's disgraceful what Amazon's doing. Then I'll do la fonction publique. Aussi, un autre exemple qui montre clairement que Pierre Poilievre, ce n'est pas quelqu'un qui est là pour la classe ouvrière, pour la classe moyenne. Il a ouvertement dit qu'il va couper plus de 100 000 emplois dans la fonction publique. Ça va heurter les communautés, ça va heurter des familles, ça va heurter aussi les citoyens, parce que si on a des délais avec les services, avec 100 000 moins de travailleurs dans la fonction publique, ça va ralentir les services aussi. Donc, ça va heurter toute la population et les travailleurs. C'est un autre exemple du fait qu'on ne peut pas aborder le coût des conservateurs et de Pierre Poilievre. I'll do that in English, then I got to wrap up. And just more proof that Pierre Poilievre is not a friend of working people. He has clearly said openly that he wants to cut 100,000 jobs from the public service. That's going to hurt those workers, obviously. It's going to hurt their families. It's going to hurt regions across this country. And it's also going to hurt citizens, because if we're already having a hard time accessing services at the federal level, 100,000 less employees is going to mean that our services are going to be more delayed, harder to access. So it's bad for people, it's bad for workers, and it's more proof that Pierre Poilievre is no friend of working people. He wants to cut jobs, cut services, and it's going to cost you. Thanks so much.
Can I ask a